Let me get this coffee brewing. One of those late lives. You did. Been reading and researching literally all day. Or most of my day. All right. Let's get this coffee going. RIP to Myron Gaines' debating career. After I call in and get through, his credibility as you know, his credibility as being quote unquote smart. RIP to that. When I call up his show and bring back his debate with Tariq, and I'm going to argue Tariq's position, which is really all of ours. He made some absolute arguments, and that's just a big red flag for him. He's a horrible debater. You don't debate in absolutes unless you're absolutely correct. That means no doubt, no possibility that you're wrong. Okay? And his argument, which I'm going to play to remind you who heard it yesterday, and I'm going to play it for those who didn't know. His arguments that he says is irrefutable. So this is what he was trying to bring to Tariq. And Tariq kind of debunked it like 3 times already, but he didn't really like sit on it. He didn't sit on it. So it kind of went like it wasn't addressed. They was like too busy trying to argue everything. There was a bunch of over talking, all type of confusion. It really wasn't a debate. It was pretty much like a fill out. But it wasn't, I wasn't satisfied. So I feel like when I call in his show and get through, hopefully when I bring it up, he'll discuss it. And he's not gonna like that I have to bring up Sudan. I just have to. Anybody who points at FBAs, we are a whole people. So if you point at my whole people and make a generalized statement, I have the right to point out your whole people and make a generalized statement. Okay. And then you ask questions about my lineage. No problem. I don't mind answering, but I have the right in return to ask about your lineage. Just to show that whatever affects us, because we're human, can also and has affected your people. So whatever force that we are saying is stopping us from getting ahead, it looks like a similar force or a force has affected your people to stop you guys from getting ahead. So why is that force so hard to acknowledge when it comes to us, FBA-DOS? All right, so If I have time, if I stay up long enough, I will play Brother Reggie, because Brother Reggie kept saying over and over and over that it's all up, and you'll hear a lot of tethers say this as well. It's all, well, the ones that admit that systemic racism is well and alive and affects FBAs, because tethers like Chaotic Truth and Myron, they don't like to admit systemic racism exists. But tethers that do, and Pan-Africanist goofies that also admit systemic racism is alive and well, they don't like to acknowledge. They like to say that tethers are, you know, so small in numbers that they don't move the needle, right? The needle that affects FBAs, undermine us to a degree that can slow down our progress and maybe stop it. But what they don't want to acknowledge is that they can help move the needle. No, by themselves, they can't move the needle, but they can help move the needle because they borrow the talking points of white supremacists. So if you borrow the talking points of white supremacists, all the white supremacists need to do now is set you up somewhere where you can make a difference that they can't make, because if they attempt to, they will be called a racist. So they'll set up the Larry Elders, the Candace Owens, and say, you say it. You say it. The what's his name? Ben Carson's. The Ben Carsons, they'll set them up and say, you say it. Because after all, you're black. So you can't be racist. And then also it's like, hey, even black people are saying it. So we're not racist after all. It's just some acknowledgement here that you guys got to do. So they'll act like there's some validity or there's some legitimacy in these talking points. And just going forward, that's why black leaders at the time of Garvey didn't appreciate him reaching out to the Klan for support, because they said you are legitimizing this white supremacist group that is not to be taken serious. Why are you talking to these guys, making them making them a serious organization? So on the screen, peace, songwriter Donnie. So on the screen, you're looking at A. Philip Randolph, Robert F. Williams, and Frederick Douglass. And behind them is the American flag. On the right of them, you have Marcus Garvey, and behind him is the Garvey or Pan-Africanist flag, the RBG flag. Myron is that Hindu in class that you asked to borrow their sharpener, and they raised their hand to tell you, the teacher, you were yeah, bro. I believe that Myron has some issues with women, with girls, not women, girls in school, right? And he had issues with not just black Americans, he had issues with Latinos, and he had issues with white Americans. Issues like what? Issues in fitting in. Because I can imagine there weren't too many Myrons in the school. If he went to public school, I can't imagine a bunch of Myrons in that public school. So if there were a mixture of white, black, and Latinos, I can imagine all three groups might have caused him some trouble, because he's trying to see where you fit in at. So I can imagine he was dorky and nerdy. So he was trying to fit in the white groups, but he looks like he can be FBA or Latino. So that was kind of, and then when they asked him what he is, or what he was, or what he is, when he says Sudan, he throws off the white group. Like, what is that? Because I'm sure they never really experienced one outside of Myron. So they're like, oh, okay, I don't know what that is, but we can't be around you because we thought you were at least black or Latino. And I'm sure that was his problem. Every group he tried to assimilate in. So there are some talking points Myron said, and you'll see chaotic truth and some other goofy tethers. They'll try to make the argument that FBA-DOS, we can't use systemic racism as an excuse. Now, that standpoint alone is retarded. It's like they don't even know what systemic racism actually is. It's like, yo, if you acknowledge that it exists, you're done. Because that is a force that's active in preventing, hindering FBA-DOS progression. So that will be an excuse or a reason why some of us can't get as far as we need to. Same day. So I just don't know how he'll get past that. I just don't know that. But hopefully he'll have a longer conversation because I do want to ask him a few questions about Sudan that I highly doubt he's going to know. Because he's been in America most of his life, is what I heard. He said he was born here. So he's not going to know a lot about Sudan. And I got to tell him, he's not going to hear it. When Tariq brought it up, he was less interested in hearing about Sudan at all. But I have to like caution him and prep him, like, bro, we have to hear about Sudan because that's where you're from. And I want to explain to him, this is why you're delusional over here to think we are the same in opportunities. Okay? You don't have the history like us, and that matters. Okay? When there's a history, just like there's a Darfur conflict in Sudan, okay? There's civil wars in Sudan between groups, okay? So if an FBA-DOS went to Sudan to, just to maybe live or experience it for whatever reason, we're not going to be treated the same way as somebody like that they have a tribal difference with. So that same thing is over here. Once it's acknowledged that you are not FBA, white supremacists don't look at you as an op like they do us. So you will be included in the little white supremacist groups to join them and ha ha he on Jewish people and FBA-DOS. That's something that he doesn't realize. So that got to be noted and pointed out. So remember that they all, when Beef Stew was debating X the Architect, the first thing he brought out was the Nigerians outperforming Black Americans. And X the Architect says, Beef Stew, you can't compare a minority group to a whole collective, to a whole lineage. And he didn't get it. Oh, yeah, you can take the first hunt. He didn't understand. So I'm going to let the research explain to you guys how you can never, and matter of fact, nobody actually does that. No expert or professional does that. Just tethers and maybe some white supremacists. But the research I bring to you today, we're going to RIP that talking point forever being taken serious. So this live right here, if you ever need a reference point, if a tether or white supremacist is bringing that dumbass talking point to you, you can clip a portion of this conversation that I bring out addressing that. As I kind of did yesterday, like I on the fly research. I just typed in Google. I just randomly typed in Nigerians are number one, or whatever I said. I never finished the thought because I didn't want to guide. See, a true researcher doesn't guide the search engine. So I just typed in the Nigerians are the best. I forgot what I typed, but it finished it for me. It said that they are the number one immigrant group, and that was proving my point that you compare immigrant groups in this country to other immigrant groups. You don't compare an immigrant group in this country to the whole of white America, the whole of, you can even say Latino America, all right, or Latin America, and no, Latinos in this country. So Latin Americans, I guess you would say, or FBA-DOS. You can't do that and be taken serious. I'm going to touch on Frederick Douglass. Or maybe I don't need to for the sake of time, but I do want to touch on. So I guess I could just I don't know. Yeah, it's not that long. I guess I would touch on Frederick Douglass and Robert F. Williams, A. Philip Randolph. So you got people pointing out Booker T. Watt, Brother Reggie brought up. But I was watching my interview, or I could say you could say interview, but it was really not an interview. It was like story time. Brother Reggie was telling stories. It wasn't really an interview. He was just telling stories, and kind of like what Umar does and other goofies. Instead of allowing me to ask him questions, he just preached the whole interview. Black man is fair. So let's get into some things here. Allow me to just go over, just expose you guys to the research. So where do we want to go first? Oh, how about we touch on Frederick Douglass? It's interesting that Umar Johnson, Dr. Umar Johnson, will name his school FD after Frederick Douglass and MG after Marcus Garvey, when these two are opposites of each other in every which way. Frederick Douglass is highly respected, not just amongst FBA-DOS, but white community too as well. Highly respected. He was in Abe Lincoln ear during the Civil War. Like, that's how respected he was. At a time where Black Americans were not respected in law by white people. And he was helping guide Abraham Lincoln with suggestions during the Civil War. All right, but I'll let the research talk. 1 second. Shoot.
Frederick Douglass, proud American or...
Okay, I got the echo. Let me stop that echo from happening. And let's try that again. I'm going to show the screen so you can read along.
Frederick Douglass, proud American or advocate for returning to Africa. Frederick Douglass was a fierce advocate for racial equality and justice in the United States, and he opposed the idea of black Americans leaving for Africa. Instead, he opposed the idea of black Americans leaving for Africa. Instead,
okay, so he was totally against the early ideas of Pan-Africanism, especially the ideas of Marcus Garvey. Because modern Pan-Africanists, these lazy guys don't go to Africa at all, and they damn sure ain't trying to live in Africa. But they will talk about how glorious Africa is, all right? And that's what we question. Like, dude, if it's so glorious, why don't you get your bags packed and go live over there, man, and live amongst your kings and queens over there? But make no mistake, Frederick Douglass was a Pan-Americanist. So these guys who hate the American flag so much, and well, then I don't know how you guys exalt, honor, praise Frederick Douglass. You can't be more American than Frederick Douglass. Matter of fact, he might be the ideal American. Like, that's no cap. Okay, so look what he did instead.
And he opposed the idea of black Americans leaving for Africa. Instead, he believed in fighting for equal rights within the US and was proud to be an American despite its injustices.
He was proud to be an American. Now, this is the issue with Marcus Garvey, because our leaders, our qualified leaders, okay, they fought for equal rights in this country. They fought for equal rights too because they planned on staying in this country. So when Marcus Garvey came over here and was talking that back to Africa talk, that was unfamiliar talk amongst us and our leaders. People in the South, in the North, and wherever they were, they didn't have these ideas of, oh my God, it's so bad in here. I just want to live in Africa. Nah. They were saying it's so bad in here, we gotta help, we gotta fight, come together and fight and get these laws changed. This ain't right. That's how we were talking. All right. So what are Douglas's views on America?
1. Douglass's views on America. A. Proud to be an American, despite slavery's evils. Douglass condemned slavery, but he also believed in the ideals of America, such as liberty and democracy. He saw the US Constitution as a powerful document that could be used to demand freedom and equality for black people.
Okay, so a lot of y'all was talking about, well, when the Constitution was written, they didn't have black people in mind, which is true. A lot of you guys said, hey, we didn't help write the Constitution, implying that because you didn't help write it, that somehow there was something wrong with it. Over here. Is he blind? Over here, come here. Okay. So some of us can get so radical that we'll say because we didn't have hands on writing the Constitution, therefore it should be null and void. Frederick Douglass didn't feel that way. Okay, Frederick Douglass said, hey man, this thing is written great. Okay, but now what we got to do is tag ourselves onto this.
In his famous 1852 speech, What to the Slave is the 4th of July, Douglass criticized American hypocrisy, but also expressed hope that the country could fulfill its promises of freedom for all.
See?
B. The Civil War and fighting for black citizenship. During the Civil War 1861 to 1864,
He wasn't fighting for African or Liberian citizenship.
5. Douglas strongly supported the Union and encouraged black men to enlist in the fight against the Confederacy. He personally recruited black soldiers for the 54th Massachusetts Regiment, arguing that military service would help black Americans earn full citizenship. He met with President Abraham Lincoln multiple times to advocate for black rights. C. Post-Civil War, Douglas believed in building black opportunities in America. After the war and the abolition of slavery in 1865, Douglas fought for black political and economic rights in America.
Not Liberia.
He supported the Reconstruction Amendments, 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, which abolished slavery, granted citizenship, and secured voting rights for black men. He believed black Americans should stay in the U.S. and fight for their rights rather than leave for Africa.
Okay, like most black leaders, okay? Fighting in this country, not fleeing. We believe in fighting, not fleeing.
2. Douglas's views on the Back to Africa movement. A. Opposition to the American Colonization Society, ACS. The American Colonization Society, ACS, wanted to send freed black people to Liberia in Africa. Many white Americans, including Abraham Lincoln early in his career, supported colonization because they did not believe black and white people could coexist as equals. However, Douglas strongly opposed this idea, believing it was an attempt to remove black people from the country they had built. B. Rejection of Marcus Garvey's Back to Africa.
They were trying to have us build the country and say, okay, take care. And what did Douglas say? No, sir.
Africa ideology. Decades later, Marcus Garvey, 1887 to 1940, would revive the idea of black migration to Africa. Douglas would rejected Garvey's message as he believed black Americans' future was in the U.S.
And by the way, I didn't put Marcus Garvey's name in this search, all right? And he came up as an op. He came up as an op in this research. Okay, this was about Frederick Douglass and his ideas and ideologies on America and back to Africa. BS.
C. Douglas's belief America belonged to black people. Douglas viewed that black Americans had built the country through their labor and had just as much right to America as white citizens. In an 1861 speech, he stated, "No people to whom liberty is given can be worthy of liberty. The liberty we prize is not America's gift to us, it is America's debt to us." He saw the United States as the rightful home of black Americans and worked to make it a place of true equality.
So it is highly disrespectful. It is highly disrespectful for anyone, any foreigner, black or white, to come into this country and just disrespect our history, disrespect our leaders and what we have done prior to them coming in. They know nothing about our history and then believe they got the right to tell us what to do. So Marcus Garvey is no different than any other immigrant that comes to this country today and believe they got the right to start giving us directions, disregarding all of our history. Like we're just waiting on this savior from another land. That is totally disrespectful for Marcus Garvey to come over here. And he came over here as we had activist boots on ground. He come over and undermined everybody and said, hey, I got this other idea. Screw fighting for equal rights. Screw fighting for practical things. Screw staying in the land that you built, that you got equity in. Screw all that. Let's leave and go to a third world country and where there's no sanitation really. Let's start all over. Let white man reap the benefits of everything you built. These guys are going to be a super world power in a few years, all because of not all because, but you provide a lot to that. You provide your labor contributed a lot to that. But let them have it. Let them be the superpower for generations. We're going to start all over and be a third world country who most likely going to need the Red Cross to drop off rice here and there. That was highly disrespectful. That was undermining. That's the definition of undermining us, because we had other plans that was more practical.
3. Frederick Douglass's legacy and patriotism. A. Douglass's role in government. After Reconstruction, Douglass continued to serve in government positions, including U.S. Marshal for the District of Columbia, 1877 to 1881, Recorder of Deeds for Washington, D.C., 1881 to 1886, Minister to Haiti, 1889 to 1891.
Did y'all know that? Did y'all know that Frederick Douglass was a minister to Haiti 1888, 1889 to 1891? Now, I remember Haiti offering Black Americans FBA-DOS citizenship or some type of residence. Let me Google this. I wonder what those years were. I wonder if it was the years when Frederick Douglass was ministering to them. Okay, hold on. How am I type this in there? Maybe offer Black Americans. Okay, there we go. Citizen. I want to know. Okay. Make this smaller. Yes, in the early 19th century, Haiti, the first independent Black republic, offered citizenship to Black Americans, viewing it as a refuge and a place where they could find freedom and equality, though the reality was complex and not always envisioned. Okay. I want to know what year was that? Okay. All right, this is 8. Okay, so this thing okay, so this was way, so why it say, oh, it said early. Okay, yeah, I got it. Yeah, so this wasn't motivated or influenced by Frederick Douglass. This was back when they got their freedom. All right, okay. I just want to know, when you start researching, you start remembering what else was said. Okay. All right. Well, just curious. I got a hell of a memory, and I start to remember what I heard before. Like, wait a minute, I wonder if Frederick Douglass had anything to do with that. But it makes sense because I started to think, why would he suggest that when he also said, let's stay in America? So I'm like, yeah, that would be contradicting what he stands for. So, okay, so got it. Anyway, let's get back. Let's get back.
His government service symbolized his belief that black Americans should claim their rightful place as leaders in the US. B. Final message. America must fulfill its promise. Before his death in 1895, Douglas remained committed to the fight for equality. He criticized racial discrimination in the post-Reconstruction South, but never wavered in his belief that black people should demand their rights in the US.
In the US, not Liberia or somewhere in Africa.
In his final speeches, he urged black Americans to continue the struggle for justice within the nation, rather than flee to another land.
I mean, can I just drop the mic? Frederick Douglass was a Pan-Americanist. He was not a Pan-Africanist at all. Most serious FBA leaders were Pan-Americanist. Okay. All right. I hope you appreciate. Okay, so now I want to go to the word because I had Brother Reggie come over here. Peace sounds. I had Brother Reggie come over here misrepresenting. I just want to say lying because I think he knew better. He came over here lying about the word African American, right? He came over here lying. Brother Reggie, you came over here. We got you. I watched it over today. I was upset. You were lying about the usage of of African American, because most of us give the credit to Jesse Jackson, as we should. But Brother Reggie pretty much had this position that black people commonly were calling themselves African American in the late 18th century. Okay. Because he mentioned the AME church, the African American church, or Epistle, whatever it was called. And it kind of like throw you off, like, well, that sounds about right. But that's the farthest from the truth. So let me give more context of where did this word, or how this word African American was being used during the time it was being used. Was it a popular term? Did many of us gravitate to it because they use this word, but then they would say, yeah, but FBA, that's a new word. FBA-DOS, that's a new word. So because it's new, we shouldn't accept it. Really? Well, African American was being used in the late 1800s, and it was new. I mean, like their logic just contradicts itself. And when you hold them to it, they just crash out on a live, where I got to mute them or kick them off. But they are very, very disingenuous. I'd say it's really hard to have an honest discussion with a Pan-Africanist. It really is hard. They are a bunch of liars, and I'm going to show some of their scholars lying. It's just, they're no different than a white supremacist as far as like protecting their agenda. They will lie to protect their agenda.
Frederick Douglass and the term African American. Frederick Douglass did not frequently use the term African American in his writings and speeches. Instead, he and many black Americans of the 19th century preferred terms that emphasized their identity as Americans, while acknowledging their African heritage. However, the concept of calling black people African Americans was present during his lifetime, though it did not gain widespread use until much later in the 20th century. 1. How early was African American used? The term African American can be traced back to the late 18th century, when it was used by free black communities. However, it was not the most popular term for black people during Douglass's lifetime. A. Early mentions of African American. In 1782, poet Phyllis Wheatley referred to herself as an African American, one of the earliest recorded uses of the term. The African Methodist Episcopal Church, founded in 1816, embraced the term African to represent black people in the U.S.
So that's one of the early churches that Brother Reggie was referring to. But misrepresenting the argument for African American deliberately, intentionally.
Some abolitionists and intellectuals used
and now it makes sense why he just comes over here and just ramble off and he don't really want to have a dialogue. He don't want to engage. He said a couple of things, stop. I said a couple of things, stop. You know how dialogues usually go. People like him, they come on your platform, they have a monologue. Like that's what Dr. Umar does, because you do that when you don't want to be challenged. When you want to say a bunch of foolishness and you don't want to be challenged. So you just say a whole bunch of everything. And then, all right, guys, I got to go. How about have a dialogue? How about you say some things? Let's take a breather. Let me respond. Let me say something myself. Well, let's research what you just said. But if you keep talking and talking and talking, then yes, we can't fact check you on the fly.
African American in the early 19th century, but it was not the dominant term.
Wait, let's run that back.
America, the U.S. Some abolitionists and intellectuals used African American in the early 19th century, but it was not the dominant term.
So you let Brother Reggie tell it, it was a dominant term, the way he was implying it. Because when we say African American and we say Jesse Jackson, we are talking about, some of us believe that he created it, but regardless, we know that he popularized the term. He popularized the term African American. That's what we all know. So Brother Reggie, to even bring up the 1790s, I think even that Goofy Tiffany did the same thing. But why bring it up if it's like barely used? FBA now is used more as an identifier than African American back then.
B. Douglas's use of the term. While Douglas occasionally referred to black Americans as Africans or people of African descent, he did not frequently use African American. He emphasized black people's American identity and often called them colored people, Negroes, or black citizens. And Hashgar 2. What did black Americans prefer to call themselves? During Douglas's time, black Americans used various terms to describe themselves, reflecting their political beliefs, social status, and regional identity.
Okay, so now this is called honest, responsible research. I always call myself, I'm a YouTube journalist. This is good journalist work right here.
Term common usage and meaning. Negro. Most commonly used term in the 19th century, considered a respectable formal term at the time. Used by Frederick Douglass, W.E.B. Du Bois, Booker T. Washington, and newspapers like the North Star. Colored, used widely by black Americans and abolitionists. The NACP, founded in 1909, originally stood for the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. Afro-American. Less common, but some black activists used it to emphasize their African roots.
I think the North Star is Frederick Douglass' newspaper he came up with.
More popular in the early 20th century. African. Used by black nationalists and Pan-Africanists, but many black Americans rejected it because they saw themselves as fully American.
Many black Americans, we reject African, but they make us feel like we're the oddballs. They make us feel like, aren't you? You are African, right? Yeah, this was a term that was widely rejected throughout our history. But they act like we're the weirdos who are rejecting African, like this was accepted throughout our history in this country. A bunch of goofies. We got them, though. We got them.
Ethiopian. Inspired by biblical and historical references. used by some black churches and intellectuals. Some used black in a political and cultural sense, but it became more popular in the 1960s during the Black Power movement. Hash ratio and percentages of usage, approximate estimates for the 19th century. Negro, 60 to 70%, most commonly used in newspapers, speeches and official documents. Colored, 20 to 30%, common among abolitionists and organizations. African American, 5 to 10%, used by some intellectuals but not widely popular.
At all.
Afro-American Ethiopian, 5%, used in religious and Pan-Africanist circles. Why didn't many black Americans call themselves African American in Douglas's time? A. Desire to be seen as fully American. Many black Americans, including Douglas, saw themselves as Americans first and believed they had a rightful place in the country.
They believed and saw themselves as Americans first. Are you denying you're African? Why you can't call yourself African? Because we're not. And neither did our ancestors call themselves Africans. They believed they were Americans first.
They feared that emphasizing African identity might give white Americans an excuse to deny them full citizenship.
You see? These folks that want to make you say African, these folks are ops. These folks are informants. They're trying to get us deported. Wait, what you call yourself? I'm African. Oh, okay. Then you got to get up out of here. This country is for Americans. That's that trick bag. That's that trick bag. We did not use that word African. You're not going to lump us up in Liberia. We are American like you are. We fought in that war. We pay taxes, whatever else you got going on. That's what we are. But mainly, we fought in the most important war in white American history in this country.
B. Association with colonization and Liberia. The American Colonization Society, ACS, which wanted to send free black people to Liberia, used the term African.
You heard that? The American Colonization Society, ACS, they were calling freed black people African. That was a play on words. Hey, come here, African. Don't you want to go to Liberia? Liberia, Africa? You're African. Why don't you want to go back to Africa? That's where your homeland is at. There's no white supremacy over there. There's no clan. Why don't you just go back home? Look at this.
Many black Americans rejected colonization and did not want to be labeled as foreigners in their own land.
Okay, so we didn't want to be called African because to be called African is low-key being put on foreigner status.
C. Influence of white terminology. The US Census, newspapers and government officials commonly used Negro and colored. Black leaders and writers adopted these terms because they were the socially accepted language of the time. 4. Shift toward African American in the 20th century. The term African American became more widely used in the late 20th century, particularly during the civil rights and Black Power movements. By the 1980s, leaders like Jesse Jackson promoted African American as a term that embraced both black identity and American citizenship. Today, African American is one of the most common terms used, but black is also widely accepted. Conclusion. Frederick Douglass and black identity terms. Douglass did not frequently use African American, but he supported black Americans embracing their identity and demanding full citizenship.
That's right.
Most black Americans in his time preferred Negro or colored over African or African American. The shift to African American became more prominent in the 20th century, reflecting a growing embrace of African heritage.
Okay. So, don't let these clowns lie to you. Don't let these goofies lie to you. Oh, you're not African? Oh, you see, he's denying he's African. They're trying to act like this is a new thing. Okay? say Negroes on my birth certificate. That's because they want to claim our accomplishment as their own. Right, right. Oh yeah, same day. I got them. Okay, this is just the start. This is and I'm like cherry picking it because I don't want to bore y'all too much with that reading. So I want to talk and do other things. But man, it gets deep. It gets deep. Okay. So where are we going next? So another time okay. Well, let's take a look. Let's take a look. I have so much stuff here, man. I have so much stuff. Some stuff is I upload is public, you guys can see it, but I got hella uploads that are not public. They're unlisted. Okay, and I just play them during lives like this. I don't want the public to have access to them to try to prepare for me when I come for them. Okay. All right, all right, all right. Okay, so where I want to go next? All right, let's go to Nigeria because this is a talking point for tethers. Tethers like to bring up Nigeria to try to compare it to us over here in America, right? And they select a few Nigerians, just a handful, and they try to compare them to basically everybody white and everybody black in America and Latino, which is a stupid comparison. It's unfair, but look, check this out.
Why are Nigerians the most educated immigrant group in America? Nigerian immigrants in the US are widely recognized as one of the most highly educated immigrant groups. This is due to a...
You see that? It said immigrant group. So over here, experts and responsible researchers and professionals, they compare immigrant groups to immigrant groups. They don't compare immigrant groups to white Americans abroad or abroad or black Americans, FBA-DOS abroad. No, if you dare compare an immigrant group to white Americans abroad or black Americans abroad, you have to compare the immigrant entire country, not a selected group. Again, can you imagine America plays basketball against other countries and they only use the dream team? The dream team is not a reflection on America's talent, average talent in the country. I play basketball. I'm nowhere near as good as those folks in that team. So the Nigerians that come over here, they are pretty much the dream team of their country. And tethers like Myron and Chaotic Truth and others try to compare their dream team to our general public. All right? Can't let that happen.
Combination of cultural emphasis on education, selective immigration policies, and Nigeria's historical ties to Western education systems. 1. Educational achievement of Nigerians in the US. Over 60% of Nigerian immigrants in the US hold at least a bachelor's degree. Nigerians are more likely to hold advanced degrees, masters, PhDs, medical or law degrees, than the general US population.
Okay, you see that? It says over 60% of Nigerian immigrants in the US holds at least a bachelor's degree. That is exceptional. But guess what? That is the exception.
Many Nigerians excel in STEM science, technology, engineering and mathematics fields, medicine and law. Compared to all US immigrants, 32%, and the general American population, 30% with bachelor's degrees, Nigerians are far ahead.
So that 33%, that's everybody. So when the tethers try to compare Nigerians and they just specify FBA-DOS, Well, you can say that about white people and Latinos. It ain't just us. Those hand-picked Nigerians, they don't just run circles around us in this country. They run circles around everybody in this country. Black Americans, white Americans, Latino Americans, and other immigrant groups. But they point us out like it's just us. They do. They are double than everybody collectively. 32% for us, 60% of them. They are far ahead.
Population 30% with bachelor's degrees, Nigerians are far ahead. Corruption in Nigeria. Nigeria is one of the most corrupt countries in the world, ranking poorly in Transparency International's Corruption Perceptions Index.
Okay, so now this is what they're not going to tell you next. Okay, because you can't separate this, and this is what Myron tries to do. He tries to separate Sudan from Sudanese people. I don't know how you separate Sudan from Sudanese people. I don't know how that's possible. All right. And you can't separate Nigeria from Nigerians in this country. So when they brag about, hey, man, 60% of us, blah, 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 blah. Hold on now. Let's not forget. You are Nigerian, right? Okay, let's also add this in there. Let's add to that equation.
Common forms of corruption in Nigeria. 1. Government and political corruption. Embezzlement of public funds, bribery and election fraud. 2. Police corruption. Law enforcement officials frequently demand bribes. 3. Educational corruption. Bribery for admissions, fake degrees and teacher absenteeism. 4. Business and financial fraud. Officials require kickbacks for contracts and business deals. Effects of corruption. Weak infrastructure and poor public services. High poverty.
So when they dare say, you FBA-DOS, y'all don't have any culture. Sir, I'm reading your culture and it comes off as very criminal. Very scammy. Very scamish. That thing said fake degrees. So when Chaotic Truth tried to imply he got a degree, brother, you guys are known to have fake degrees.
And unemployment rates, loss of trust in the government. Employment versus unemployment in Nigeria, 33 to 35%, one of the highest in the world.
Damn.
Youth unemployment, over 50%.
So their unemployment rate is one of the highest in the world. Youth unemployment, over 50% of young Nigerians struggle to find jobs. So they just sit home all day and just shoot craps.
Percent of young Nigerians struggle to find jobs. Underemployment. Many Nigerians work in informal jobs that do not pay well. Main sectors of employment: agriculture 35%, trade and commerce 25%, oil and gas 10%, technology and services 10%. Crime in Nigeria and its percentages. Nigeria has a high crime rate, including violent crime, financial fraud, and organized crime. Most common crimes in Nigeria with estimates. Financial fraud and scamming, 40% of crime cases.
Oh, yeah, I got it ranked from highest to the lowest. So the highest, the most often crime they do in Nigeria is financial fraud and scamming. All right? So talk to me nice.
Reported. Kidnappings and ransom crimes died 20%. Armed robbery and theft, 15%. Drug trafficking, 10%. Political and election violence, 5%. Cybercrime, internet scams, 10%. Causes of crime in Nigeria: high unemployment, poverty, corruption, weak law enforcement.
Right there. So when Myron says there are no excuses in 2024 to 2025 for Black Americans, FBA-DOS, to fall short of success, Brother, this is either true or it's false. High unemployment causes crimes, poverty causes crimes, and weak law enforcement. We are experiencing high unemployment for this country. We're experiencing poverty. We're experiencing weak law enforcement. So three out of the four reasons why Nigeria is high in crime, we are experiencing the same thing. So that's why I say it's important for us to bring up Sudan, even though Myron hates it, is to show, bro, sometimes if something is happening amongst people, it just bring about one result. That's it. Okay, so if it's happening to you guys, don't try to make us above that. If it's happening to you, and that's the reason why you guys are getting ahead, and you see it happening with us, don't try to act like we just can overcome that. No, that's a problem for anyone.
Nigerian migration and countries they move to.
Uh-oh.
A large number of Nigerians migrate due to economic hardship, corruption and lack of opportunities. Percentages of Nigerians who leave the country. About 15 to 20% of Nigeria's skilled workforce has left the country. Top destinations for Nigerian migrants. 1. United States. 2. United Kingdom. 3. Canada. 4. United Arab Emirates. 5. Germany. 6. South Africa. Paternity fraud cases in Nigeria.
Uh-oh.
Nigeria has one of the highest rates of paternity fraud.
Okay, I had to go here because Myron said one of the reasons why Nigerians are doing better than FBA-DOS is because they value family, nuclear families more than FBAs. I don't know about that.
In the world, estimates range from 25% to 30% of men unknowingly raising children that are not biologically theirs.
They don't sound family-oriented.
Causes of paternity fraud: infidelity in marriages, weak enforcement of DNA testing.
Wait a minute, infidelity in marriages? That don't sound like they're valuing nuclear family homes. This sounds like a divorce is about to happen.
Social stigma around questioning paternity. Effects of paternity fraud: broken families, emotional and psychological trauma, financial burdens on men raising children that aren't theirs. Scamming and fraud in Nigeria. Nigeria has a global reputation for internet fraud, also known as 4119 scams, named after
419 scams, 419 scams. That's how it said a global reputation. Not, you hear that? That means other countries put Nigeria on notice. Hold on one second. Let me put this guy to bed. He's in my arms. He's falling asleep. Give me 1 second. But how you like the information so far? And this is not even that deep just yet. It's good. It's insightful, but it's not it just yet. I had to grab my charter since I was up. Okay.
Nigeria's criminal code for fraud. Types of scams. 1. Email scams, Nigerian prince scam. Fake promises of wealth in exchange for money. 2. Romance scams. Scammers pose as lovers online to deceive victims into sending money. 3. Business email compromise, C fraud. Hacking emails of businesses to steal money. 4. Ponzi schemes. Fake investment opportunities that promise high returns. 5. Job scams. Fake job offers requiring upfront payment. Why
Watch the best. I'm saving the best for last.
Is scamming so common in Nigeria? High unemployment among educated youth, poor law enforcement, social acceptance in some circles where scammers are seen as smart businessmen.
Their culture, they believe scammers are smart businessmen. They are that degenerate. They deluded themselves to believe scamming is so common in Nigeria that they didn't want to face how shameful it is. And instead, they deluded themselves to believe scammers are smart businessmen. That's wild.
Final thoughts. 1. Nigerians in the US are highly educated due to selective immigration policies and cultural values. 2. You can't compare Nigerians in America to the entire white or black American population because the Nigerian immigrant group is a self-selected elite group.
I told you. So those small groups of Nigerians that's in this country, look at them as the dream team of a basketball team of a country. Okay, so the American Dream Team does not represent the basketball talent of the country. That is our best going out there performing. Our best are far removed from the public as far as skill set. So these Nigerians in America, these elitists, they are far removed from the Nigerian public. We'll get into that later.
3. Nigeria faces challenges like corruption, unemployment, high crime rates, and fraud. 4. Many Nigerians leave the country for better opportunities, mostly moving to the US, UK, and Canada. 5. Paternity fraud and internet scams are widespread issues harming both Nigerians and people globally.
Damn. Their scams are so bad, it don't just harm Nigerians, it harms the world. It said people globally. All right. So, but these guys be talking. Lord, peace, man. I used to get scam emails. Yeah, from Nigerians. It's the scam where some tether was pretending to be the director of. Wow. Hey, they got my boy for a couple $100. He's on some dating stuff. He's obese. He was like 50-something years old, 54. He's obese, and they got him. They sent some old fake picture of some Nigerian princess, and she just needed a couple $100, and she was going to come to the country and marry him. Yeah, they got them jackets, man. They got them tailor-made jackets. So the Nigerian had some Nigerian princess scam my boy to believe that he was going to meet the love of his dreams, only to realize it will only be in his damn dreams he'll meet the love of his life. But again, he was obese. He was wishing it was true. Nothing I say or anybody can say, we were not going to convince him otherwise. He was willing to take the risk. Like, man, listen, man, this I have to know for myself. I said, all right, man, go ahead. Just let me know what happens. And sure enough, he said they got him for a couple $100. They got him for a couple $100. All right. So you know what? I'm trying. Should I play some Brother Reggie real quick? Okay, yeah, let me play some Brother Reggie real quick. so we can hear the lies. And so I was not able to catch his lies because I wasn't really familiar with a lot of things you were talking about, but I got more familiar later. And that's how I debate, like, or that's how I learn. I learn from debates, especially with new topics. Like I don't know what I need to know in advance. So when I had these discussions with these guys, I start to realize, okay, now I know what I need. So and I just get prepared with that.
And all that type of stuff. I like to learn on the in the real moment, hopping on because I didn't think he would. Not that
form of graduation, and report on a case of a young. As I've talked to so many people, Black leaders along the way, Black leaders from various, can I say, places and walks of life, and in the context of the Black struggle. What I find unbiased sports is that many people are joining this movement, which they call a lineage. And that's fine, but in my studies of Black history,
I hate when I do that, man.
The enslaved, who were human. I'm not going to call the slaves, but
I can't get it down. I position the mouse on the computer and it just pulled this bullshit up, man. Okay, I'm back. I hate that shit, man.
Slave. That we there were several migration movements into the United States by Africans before slavery and Africans after. And I heard you talking to Stupies, shout out to Stupies, about the immigration, the large immigration of Jamaicans. I did have an issue with that because Booker T. Okay, so we get into some of the stuff. So, what differences do you have with me in what you think I'm saying? I want to clear that up.
Yeah. So when I listened to you, I was trying to like figure out what you disagree with as far as the idea of FBA. Now I understand that you.
Is it my volume or yours? So let me see if I can turn up my volume. It might be on my side.
Let me say it again. Hello? You can
hear
me? Can you hear me better?
I'm going to turn up my volume.
Okay.
Okay. So go ahead.
Okay. So I was like interested to hear what disagreement you had with the idea of FBA being a lineage. So I was watching some of your dialogues that you had, you know, either by yourself or with Mike Larry. And I was like, really, as you see, that was my second time watching it because I watched it from Mike Larry channel first, but I noticed it was shorter than yours. It was like, and probably because you did like an analysis, but actually yours actually showed more of the discussion than what he put his channel. So when I seen your upload, I seen it was longer. I said, okay, let me watch it. Let me see what Brother Reggie has an issue with. And from the little bit, the entire dialogue you had with him, I see that your issue is really is with Tariq's, like his position, his website, his flag, and what happens is, I even heard Chief X do this, and I'm not tying it together, but what happens is, I see people tie in Tariq Nasheed to FBA. Okay, I think that's unfair because Jesse Jackson came up with African American, and we call ourselves African American. Nobody tie us with his entire Christianity and whatever he got going on. It's like, to me, just an identity to be more fitting and more exclusive to other ethnic groups, to other races, to others, period. So I was like, why would Brother Reggie have an issue with descendants of slaves in America who's trying to come up with a more fitting title that is all exclusive, no different than Jamaica. Okay, Jamaica is all exclusive to Trinidad, somebody from Trinidad, Tobago, somebody from Guyanese, the Caribbean itself. Like all of them are all exclusive to each other. Jamaica, they got their own flags, their own people, and they could tell you the differences they have amongst each other. You go to the continent of Africa, you got Liberia, Niger, sound the same, it rhymes. But a Nigeria would say, no, this is us, this is our flag, and that's them, and that's their flag. They're all exclusive. So when it comes all the way back to us in America, we're calling ourselves everything. But when others come over here that has a flag, has an identity, and is clearly completely exclusive, they're able to call themselves what we call ourselves. So I'm like, wait a minute, that's weird. Like, why you get to be me, but I can't be you? So where we're at now, when the talks of reparations, we're saying, okay, we went through something unique. Jamaicans went through something unique. Haitians and even our continental Africans went through something unique. So we're saying, like Tone Talks bring out, we've been locked out of the economy, the money. The gap is way too large to ever come up on. Like, it's almost impossible. It's like it's a dream, a farce to believe we're going to work hard to catch up where and close this wealth gap. So Tone and other folks are like, listen, it's too far. We need a large something to catch up. And that something was reparations. So now when he said that, white folks, before anybody else chimed in, white Americans said, well, who's getting paid? Because they don't, white folks don't want to hand a check out to everybody. They're like, shit, well, how you going to be able to tell you from this person, that person? So now I'm saying I'm part of the collective. I wasn't there when this was going on, but because I'm still part of that lineage. We said, okay, how can we come up with a way where people can't tether on and take away from something that we went through uniquely? So they was attempting to come up with different ways to just pin it to just us. None of the diaspora from the Caribbean and none of the continent Africans, just DOS, A-DOS, DAS, Freedmen, FBA. Okay, so from there, I'm okay, that makes sense. Because Black and African American, that right there is not exclusive to us. Because when Jamaicans or whoever come over here, they check the box. The box is going to say white, Latino, non-Latino, Black / African American, and other. I don't think they're selecting other. I think they're selecting Black African American, but they're Jamaican. So it's like, are you a Black African American Jamaican? And if you are, when did that happen? Because I always knew you were Jamaican. So I felt like, okay, that is too inclusive. So I agree with the A-DOS, the Freedmen, the FBA, the line drawing to give Black Americans something more fitting.
Okay. Well, Africans, African Americans, Black Americans, we have as a population no threat from the migrant or the voluntary migrating Africans, and what we are is a portion of the Black experience in the United States, where we fundamentally are a nation away from home. But we have no threat from those populations. The threat is really against the European populations. Some of the biggest threats we had was the more recent immigrants of whites from Europe, the Irish and the Italian, and certainly the old groups, the white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, those that were British. Those were British before they rebelled against Britain, right? They rebelled against Britain for none of the things that we actually went through. They went through because they thought they was being taxed without representation, but they weren't enslaved. And so they were rebels and they won and they get to tell their story. And they continue the British enslavement. My problem is the rhetoric against a minority of Black migrants that don't move the needle. They are not, or they, who's taking our jobs? Well, well, who's taking our jobs? Well, now we have a bigger threat of South American, Native American groups, Mexicans and Nicaraguas and uh, other groups from, and they are coming into America. And the problem is that the same Black people that you want to classify as FBAs, many of them, what they are really Democrats. They forgot who they are, and they cater to those groups. Those groups are the most dangerous groups because in their second and third generation, from the populations that they came in, not doing anything for this or enduring any of the pain and suffering, in their second and third generations, they will vote us out. We, as Black Americans, we find ways to criticize everybody else.
So sorry to bore you, but I just wanted you to hear some. Well, it's not really me boring you; it's Brother Reggie, but I wanted you to hear some of the hate that comes out of his mouth when he has to represent FBA, our ideologies and viewpoints. He is sitting there complaining about why we criticize Black immigrants and other immigrants when the whole time he's criticizing FBAs. It's like, yo, he's just contradicting himself. Like, dude, ain't that what just humans do? We criticize each other, especially when criticism is worthy. All right, so I'm gonna stop right there. I don't play with things, but the whole dialogue, it kept coming back to. I wanted to again. I'm gonna do some of that audio. It's gonna be dope. So that right there, like that's the raw cut of what I'm doing with that. So I got some good plans for the audio. You see, it sounds boring. It's not gonna be boring when I'm done with it. It's gonna be an entertaining video. It's gonna piss them off though, but it's gonna be an entertaining video. You just watch the raw cut. What I got. There go Jesus. My man said Reggie just did a show on Super Wavy that stopped. What is Reggie's show called? I can get Reggie back in here. He's gonna be afraid. What is Reggie's show called? Jesus Christ. Let me just tell you how you're trolling is corny. Yeah. There's 43 million of us. Okay. There's going to be smart FBAs. There's going to be retarded ones. There's going to be regular educated ones. You dig? There's going to be strong, fast, and slow. There's going to be big obese, healthy in shape, and medium. Okay. There's all flavors of FBAs. So we're not proud of FBAs that get caught up in crime, but we understand every race, every ethnicity have crime in their country. Okay, but now, how do you know our crime? Because crime is a given. Now you don't want it to get out of control. So now this is how you do it, Jesus. You got to say, what is our crime rate and scamming compared to your country? And then you'll see a big difference. Okay, you'll see a big difference in crime. All right, so let me get rid of that. All right, so let me drop probably one more video. And it's going to be A. Philip Randolph versus Marcus Garvey. Okay, so this may be the last video of the night. Okay, and then I gonna hop in.
Philip Randolph and Marcus.
Gonna hop into bed, and hopefully, because I do wake up 3 o'clock every morning, I just been going back to sleep. And today I didn't go back to sleep today, but I was in the bed like just watching YouTube, catching up on my shows, and not shows, but YouTube. You can say YouTube shows, YouTube content. I was just catching up, and I could have got. I did do a live 7 a.m. It was me and Ditso. I replayed that one. How I embarrassed him. Show how dumb he is, but I didn't go at 3-4 a.m. like I would normally do about a month ago. All right, but here we are. A. Philip Randolph and Marcus Garvey. What issues do they have amongst each other, and why? What caused the fallout?
Philip Randolph and Marcus Garvey, their relationship and fallout. Philip Randolph and Marcus Garvey were both influential black leaders of the early 20th century, but they had major ideological differences that led to a bitter rivalry. Not one early relationship between Randolph and Garvey. Philip Randolph was a socialist, labor organizer, and civil rights activist, known for leading the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters and advocating for black economic empowerment through labor unions. Marcus Garvey, founder of the Universal Negro Improvement Association, UNEA, believed in black nationalism and economic self-sufficiency, promoting the idea that African Americans should return to Africa. Initially, both men were advocating for black economic progress, but their visions differed dramatically. Why Philip Randolph turned against Marcus Garvey. Randolph and his close associate Chandler Owen, co-founder of the Messenger newspaper, fiercely criticized Garvey for several reasons. Garvey's opposition to integration and labor unions. Randolph believed in labor rights and integrating black workers into the American economy. He saw...
that was the views of most black leaders that were FBA-DOS. So when Marcus Garvey came with the hell with equal rights, let's just flee the country, that pissed off A. Philip Randolph. Like, yo, who is this tether?
Unions as the best way to uplift black people.
So he didn't see fleeing the country as an answer to the problem in America. He's seeing unions and labor rights and integrating black workers into the American economy. You see? So when you guys say integration, like, y'all got to stop with the narrative. Integrating us into the American economy where there's more money.
Garvey rejected integration, arguing that black Americans should not seek equality in the US, but should instead build their own economy and return to Africa.
Return to Africa, brother. We've never been there. So where are we returning from? Now, he had these plans for us while he was going to sit his fat self in America. He had no plans on going to Africa himself. He's never been there.
Randolph viewed Garvey's separatism as harmful and unrealistic.
Right, charlatan.
Garvey's meeting with the Ku Klux Klan, KKK, in 1922. Garvey openly met with KKK leaders in Atlanta to discuss the idea of black Americans returning to Africa.
What did he think the Klan could do for us? Again, this is one of those uppity tethers that believe that they can tell us what to do. They have the answers, Sway.
Randolph was outraged that Garvey would legitimize white supremacists.
Right, they are clowns.
Randolph wrote scathing editorials against Garvey, calling him a charlatan and fraud who was leading black people astray.
You see, we say scammer today, but fraud is equivalent to scammer. So A. Philip Randolph was calling Garvey to his face a charlatan and a fraud who was deceiving black people. But somehow, y'all got to ask yourself, why do Pan-Africanists exalt this guy, this scammer. Like, that's wild.
See Garvey's business failures and fraud allegations. Randolph attacked Garvey for financial mismanagement, particularly in his Black Star Line steamship company, meant to transport Black Americans to Africa.
All right, it's about to get spicy. Buckle up.
Randolph and Owen published articles in The Messenger exposing Garvey's questionable business practices. D. Garvey's authoritarian leadership. Randolph.
Authoritarian leadership. That's the same thing Umar is today. Authoritarian is pretty much a one-man show. Look at Umar, what he got going on. It's a one-man show. Nobody can influence him. Nobody can tell him what to do. Nobody can suggest anything. It's a one-man show, just like Marcus Garvey. Just like Marcus Garvey. Authoritarian leadership.
Randolph believed Garvey was too dictatorial and did not allow criticism within the UNEA.
Right.
Garvey saw himself as a black Moses and did not tolerate opposition, which made Randolph view him as dangerous and egotistical.
Ain't that the same charges we give Umar Johnson?
Marcus Garvey's business assets and finances.
Here we go.
1.
All the lies are
properties and businesses Garvey owned without donations. Garvey did not.
The question is, what properties and businesses did Garvey own without donations? Of course, I asked that question. You got to know how to talk to AI, okay? Because the Garveyites will lie and say, he owned this restaurant, he owned this business. Really? It's not hard to own something. You chat. If all of you gave me a lot of money, would you be surprised if I bought property, if I bought a home, if I bought a Rolls Royce and I bought jewelry? You guys are making me rich. And it's all unearned. You just like me. You're giving me your hard work earned money. How surprised will you be that I bought a mansion, I got a fancy car, and I own a home and property? That's not hard to do when people just give you money. So we got to stop falling for that. We got to stop falling for somebody is able to buy a jet. Well, damn, if 30,000 people gave him $100, yes, he can buy a jet.
1. Properties and businesses Garvey owned without donations. Garvey did not own much outright without donations or investments.
He was a broke tether. Garvey did not own much outright with donations or investments. So just like Umar Johnson, just like Jay Morrison, they need, and the average scammer, they need your money so they can floss.
Garvey did not own much outright without donations or investments. Most of his projects, including the Black Star Line, were funded by selling stock and seeking donations. He did operate some UNEA grocery stores and factories, but these were also built with investor money.
You see that? So the Garveyites, they brag, the Pan-Africans, oh, he owned this store, he owned that. Bro, he ain't owned anything. That was the investors' monies that they gave him, hoping to have equity and stake in the ships. They didn't know their money was going to grocery stores and factories. But this is Garvey purchasing things with your hard-earned money.
2. How did Marcus Garvey fund his first ship? Garvey's first ship, the Yarmouth, renamed the Frederick Douglass, was bought using funds raised from stock sales in the Black Star Line. He did not have personal wealth. He raised money through small black investors.
He had no personal wealth. All of his money came from us. He literally stuck his hand out and said, give me money. And we made this dude extremely rich.
Marcus Garvey's fraud allegations and false advertising. 1. How did Garvey defraud investors? Garvey's Black Star Line promised black Americans that they would have a powerful black-owned shipping company. However, several things went wrong.
What went wrong?
Selling stock in a non-existent company.
That is called fraud. You're selling stock in a non-existent company. That's wild. Marcus Garvey was selling stock in a non-existent company, but these folks want to act like this ain't real. They won't deny it, but they'll act like they've never seen this before. This is one of the worst guys ever to come amongst us in FBA America to act like he's here to help.
However, several things went wrong. Selling stock in a non-existent company. Garvey began selling stock in the Black Star Line before he had acquired a ship.
So he's selling stocks to us, saying, hey, buy these stocks and you'll have a percentage in this ship. And the guy didn't even own the ship yet. He was going to buy the ship after you gave him the money.
Garvey began selling stock in the Black Star Line before he had acquired a ship. He advertised
That's wild.
Powerful steamships that did not yet exist.
He's advertising powerful steamships that did not exist yet.
B. False advertising and over-exaggerated promises. Uni-A promotional materials featured fake images of luxurious ships. Garvey claimed the Black Star Line would connect Africa, the Caribbean and the US, but the company was never financially stable. The first ship purchased was not seaworthy, and other ships were mismanaged or never delivered.
Never delivered. But you give them your hard-earned money like it was there.
C. Financial mismanagement and fraudulent deals. Garvey paid inflated prices for ships that were in poor condition, leading to accusations of corruption. He sold stocks that were not registered with the US government, violating securities laws. Now 3. Was Marcus Garvey convicted for selling unregistered stocks? Yes. In 1923, Garvey was convicted of mail fraud for using the postal system to sell fraudulent stock in the Black Star Line.
So let me tell you how that happened. So Marcus Garvey companies were being dissolved, right? They were being sued by his investors, and other things were happening. His steamships were, the ones he did purchase, weren't worth a damn thing, and he was trying to accumulate money to buy other steamships. So he needed, now his company was falling apart. You know, it was falling apart. It was no longer where it was before, right? So with all the scamming donations, it was still falling apart. It was losing money. So as it was losing money, he's like, damn, I need to get these FBA-DOS to buy more stocks. So you know what he did? As a desperate attempt, he started to send his investors, with quotations, his victims. He sent his victims, you know, through mail, pretty much he was promoting stocks. Hey, listen, hey, buy stocks in this and that, you know, and maybe like less than what it was before, whatever he was doing. But he was trying to he was trying to finesse people to buy more stocks. And because he needed the money fast, he sent it by mail, like all these, like, I'm trying to use the best word. He was trying to convince people to buy stocks, and he did it by mail. Okay, and that's mail fraud. You can't do that. So he's definitely guilty of mail fraud and scamming.
He was sentenced to 5 years in prison and fined. 4. Did Garvey sell stocks for ships he didn't own? Yes. He raised money by selling stock in ships that had not yet been acquired.
That's called scamming.
Investors thought they were buying shares in an active shipping business, but the ships were either non-functional or never purchased.
Never purchased.
Marcus Garvey's later years, deportation and problems in London. 1. Deportation to Jamaica, 1927. In Stress 1927, President Calvin Coolidge commuted Garvey's sentence, and he was deported to Jamaica. He tried to rebuild the UNEA in Jamaica, but it never regained its former influence.
I wonder why.
2. Did Garvey return to London? In 1935, he moved to London, after struggling to regain power in Jamaica. In London, he had issues with reporters and declining influence. The British press did not take him seriously, and many viewed him as a failure.
Ain't that crazy? But you got the delusional Pan-Africanist goofies that believe and teach. There's so many videos on YouTube. There's so many Facebook groups, and they all champion Marcus Garvey as some type of hero. And that has to lead you to believe, what part of history about Garvey are they reading to make you exalt this guy today? That is some serious delusion.
Did Marcus Garvey read his own obituary? Yes. In 1940, a British newspaper mistakenly published an obituary of Marcus Garvey before he had died. Garvey read it and reportedly stroke shortly after. Myers suffered a stroke shortly after. He died soon after on June 10th in London. But
that's crazy. This dude read his own obituary. They prematurely say he was dead, and he read it. He was dead. That's crazy. Like, that's a sad way to go out, man.
Analysis: Garvey versus Randolph. Ishay Philip Randolph's view, Marcus Garvey's view. Race and economy. Integrate into US labor unions, create a separate black economy. Return to Africa? Opposed. Wanted equality in US. Supported Africa was the future. Dealing with white supremacists, rejected KKK, met with KKK. Black Star Line called it a scam, promoted it as the black economy's future. Leadership style: democratic, union-based, authoritarian, self-centered. Conclusion: Marcus Garvey was a visionary who inspired black pride and economic independence, but his business failures and authoritarian leadership led to scandal and legal trouble. A. Philip Randolph saw Garvey as a fraud who distracted black workers from real economic progress through labor unions.
A. Philip Randolph was calling that dude out to his face while Garvey was alive. He didn't do it behind his back. He was responsible leader. He was calling Garvey out to his face. Like, dude, you are a scammer. Pete Robinson, you are a scammer, Marcus Garvey. Scammer. Okay? So, and that's like a light, believe me, chat. That was a light, because y'all know I go way harder on Marcus Garvey than just that. But that was a light version on Marcus Garvey. It's a light version. It gets deeper, but I didn't want to go deep. I wanted just light information, 5 minutes the most. So these are quick 5 minute, 7-minute videos. Right? I didn't want anything crazy too long. But a lot of research, man. It's a lot of research I've been doing. A lot of reading, then I gotta make a video. I got, a lot of research, man. A lot of work to put these things together. So, but the Brother Reggie video, I got some plans for that one. I'm gonna have that thing. I'm gonna spruce it up. I'm gonna have it more, definitely more entertaining. But you gotta ask yourself, if Marcus Garvey is clearly a scammer and a piece of trash guy, why do Pan-Africanists and a lot of black foreigners, why do they big this guy up? Why? He said, wasn't he working for? And look, hey Robinson, I keep hearing that. Like, you're like the 10th person that said that. And that was gonna be my title, by the way. Something similar, Robinson. My title was gonna be, because I had to be careful how I say it, because when you say informant, people automatically think FBI or CIA. So I didn't want them to believe that I was talking about that type of informant. But informant can be, he could work for different. They don't have to be law enforcement. but I was going to name it like that for Robinson. I was going to name it something similar to that. It was going to be was Garvey sent? It was something along the lines where it implies that he was sent here for a particular reason, right? But I was definitely going to try to do that. And MC Fact said, and to think you named Umar named his school after Garvey, right? That is so ironic. So you know he's going to his grave with this. Drop a link. What link? What link? MC Fact. The link for the video or the link to call in. Let me do it. I think you're talking about the video. So let me put the video link in there. Yeah, and like I said, this is being nice. But I wanted y'all to see how A. Philip Randolph was all over Garvey, cooking him. And if you guys want to know A. Philip Randolph credentials, believe me, most FBA leaders in this country, old and new, can't tie A. Philip Randolph shoes when it comes to accomplishments, achievements, you dig, and impact. Accomplishments, achievements, and impact in this country. That's why he's there with Frederick Douglass and Robert F. Williams. That dude, A. Philip Randolph, was the guy. I wasn't that aware of Frederick Douglass, so I started to like dig into him more, and I like him, man. He was a proud American. Listen, if y'all came late, just know I played Frederick Douglass earlier. Just catch the beginning. He was no question, and he was here guiding Abraham Lincoln in the Civil War. So he was around when we were actively, physically fighting for our freedom and citizenship in this country. Okay, so he was, he escaped to slavery, and by pretending to be a sailor, and he had sailed, he snuck to the north, and that's how he gained his freedom. But he escaped from slavery by pretending to be a sailor. That's some wild stuff. But he's responsible for a lot of things. So people like Robert F. Williams, people like A. Philip Randolph, and people like Frederick Douglass, like they got people. Frederick Douglass I read he's a great orator. So all these people that do great speeches that go around, like Umar, all of them are inspired by Frederick Douglass. Like that's what he inspired. That he inspired people to be great orators. All right. So A. Philip Randolph inspired people to be activists, like a real activist. Robert F. Williams inspired people to be a real Black nationalist. Okay? A real revolutionary. Not these clowns that go around here holding guns all damn day, doing nothing. That's not, he wasn't going around holding guns, arguing with white people or white officers. Nah. These guys meant serious business. I was in a powwow with some Pan-Africanists today on a live. They were trying to claim that no Negro tribes existed in America prior to slave trade. Hey, Robinson, please invite those guys over here, man. Hey, y'all don't know. I joined like 10 Marcus Garvey groups today on Facebook, begging people to to debate with me so I can invite them over here. I can't get any of them. Please, if you guys can come across some goofies, some Pan-Africanists, some tethers, please try to get them over here. Bait them, do what you gotta do, but don't act like this. Don't tell them that this is a debating channel. Just play possum. Be like, hey man, we be talking about that over on here, man. You should check it out. come through. They got a phone number. Just ask for the phone number. He'll send the phone number, and you can call in. Yeah, do it like that, man. Lullaby them to sleep. Don't tell them, yo, they be debating. If you say that, they're not coming. These are a bunch of internet gangsters. Okay, but I need, yeah. Watch how I make them bow down, because they got to either be a complete liar like Ditso and so many others like Beef Stew and Hancock. They gotta be liars like them, just compulsive liars, or they gotta admit they gotta admit that Garvey was a piece of trash. There's no way to get around that. Yeah, no, I'm not coming to them though, Robinson. I'm not doing that. Because again, Robinson, I don't go to them because I have enough experience with them that they are liars. I can show their most respected leaders lying. So if their most respected leaders will lie, okay. When I say leaders, I'm talking about researchers. If I can show you right now their most respected leaders lying, then the apple don't fall too far from the tree. So I'm not going to their platforms. They're coming here where I can hold them to a standard, right, of honesty, being honest. No deflecting, no. That's a dumb question because that's all they're gonna do. You ask a good question, they're gonna tell you it's a dumb question. It's everything but to avoid answering. So I'm not interested at all going to any of their platforms. I'm the guy who's been saying for months, I've never met an honest Pan Africanist. And with that being said, that means they're no different. Okay. So no, I'm not interested. I won't even, because if I'm going to talk and have a conversation, I want it to be meaningful. I want it to be edifying. And it's not going to go far on their platform because they're going to lie. Mm-mm. Come over here. And we can have that we can have a discussion because y'all see how I give it up. Brother Reggie, look at him. I just played Brother Reggie. He was talking forever. I didn't cut him off. He was talking forever. So y'all already see how I do. I let folks rant and ramble, not anymore because you see it's boring. But people talk forever over here when they debate me. And it's a strategy. They try to debate, they try to just wear you down. A single mother who wore a blonde wig at Robinson. He apparently was tricking and kicking off the money donated to the invisible. There are some undercover Pan Africanist channels out there. Yeah, man, I need to get access to these guys. All man, you don't know, on Facebook, on YouTube, I go to their videos. I comment. Some folks reply, but they are they'll reply, they'll converse for a couple of minutes, like they give me hope they'll have a conversation, and then they'll just start replying. I got two guys. I mean, this is what I'm saying. These guys are liars. I got two guys I can show you that they said, yes, I'm interested. Send me the link. This is like 3 weeks ago. They ain't never come. So I would, every so often go to that comment and be like, hey, man, y'all free? I'm going live. And no response, nothing, ever. Yeah, so that's why I said, man, I'm a pessimist when it comes to these Pan-Africanists. They can't be honest. They have
Philip Randolph and Marcus Garvey, their relationship and
they have no integrity. They're a bunch of liars, unfortunately. It's unfortunate. But yeah, a lot of them are a bunch of liars. Matter of fact, let me go ahead and play one of their leaders. Nah. Should I? I was gonna do it for the next slide. Because I got on here late. I was not trying to get on here late, but I had no choice. You know what? I might give y'all a bonus. I might give y'all a bonus. All right. Okay, let me give y'all a bonus. Let me give y'all a bonus. Let me give y'all a bonus. Let me give y'all a bonus.
And Mr. Garvey talking about his haters. W.E.B. Du Bois, A. Philip Randolph, all types of coons, NAACP.
You heard he said, talking about Garvey haters, he named A. Philip Randolph. So Umar knows. So it's like, if Umar knows about A. Philip Randolph, then he knows
Mr. Garvey
what,
talking about his haters.
okay,
W.E.B. Du Bois.
So that means that he knows what we know. He knows what we read. So how do you know what we know about A. Philip Randolph and you still call him a coon? And that's why I said these guys cannot be honest. They will crash out and lie for Garvey. Like, this is a cult. These guys who are into Garvey, they're in a cult. So when I talk to them, it's not to convince them, by the way. It's just to show you guys how religious and stuck they are on that idea that Marcus Garvey is the Moses.
Mr. Garvey talking about his haters. W.E.B. Du Bois, A. Philip Randolph, all types of coons, NAACP.
See?
Descended from Europeans or Africans, they suggested, Americans, white and black, were in the process of developing racial characteristics as severely individual as those of Europeans, Asians, and Africans, meaning those known as whites and blacks in the USA had developed unique identities from those in Europe, Asia, and Africa. And by this time, the white man was clearly different from his European ancestors, just as Negroes were greatly different from their African ancestors. Surely, the voice of the AME Church would argue no one could expect black people in the United States to be Africans after their lengthy residence in this land.
You heard that? These are people talking in the 1800s. They are acknowledging an ethnogenesis way back then. But they want to pretend we are crazy. They want to pretend what we're saying today is new. It was never talked about or spoken by somebody respected during the plantation, slightly after it. These guys are a bunch of liars.
To say that we could have preserved our African characteristics after dwelling for almost 3 centuries upon this continent is most unphilosophical. Were it true, we would be the most stolid race of the world. But whoever credited the Negro for stolidity?
Whether descent.
Okay, so this is John Mercer Langston. Okay, look at this.
The fact is, we are thoroughly Americans. And
this is the 1800s. He said the fact is we are thoroughly Americans. He didn't say we're thoroughly Africans. So
by reason of the fact that we have been here longer than the majority of the new American race, we have developed more fully than they, the characteristics by which it is to be known.
Which is very true. There are many people of Asian and European descent that had ancestors that were relatively recent arrivals to this land. Many of them arrived in the mid to late 1800s, and millions of them came around that time, right? All the way up until the early 1900s, you had millions of people migrate to this country, right? It doesn't make
he's talking about the Europeans.
them any less American, but the Negroes had been here much longer than that, right? And claiming Africa basically just throws all of that to the wind. Even as blacks emphasized their American roots, they could not agree on whether they were Negro, colored, black, or African Americans. And from our view, all of those names are unfitting.
Okay, so the same thing they're doing, same thing they did then, we're doing now. We're just trying to find a better fit term for ourselves. They were arguing that back in the day, but they act like what we're doing now is so different. It's so new.
Henry M. Turner, a leader in the African Methodist Episcopal Church, agreed with several of his ministerial colleagues that the term African should be stricken from the title, if only because it suggested exclusion. On the other hand, unlike
they said Africans should be stricken off. So they did not want to be called African. Is this Unbiased Ron? Is this the chat? Is this Tariq Nasheed? Is this Yvette Tone? No. This is the one of the leaders of the AME Church. The A in the AME Church stands for African, and even they said that their terminology is not good enough. It should be stricken. But Brother Reggie was implying that since the name of the church was African, that they were promoting that we were African, and everybody was on board. The leader of this church said, no, that's not a fitting term.
The most of my race. He claimed pride in being called a Negro. He liked being called a Negro. Many other formerly enslaved did not, but for some reason he did. When I am walking the streets of a city and hear someone say, "There goes a Negro preacher or Negro chaplain," I feel a peculiar exaltedness. He liked the ring of it, I guess, right? That's his preference. By the 1870s, the issue was far from settled, though colored seemed the most acceptable term, and a Louisiana newspaper indicated a willingness to accept Negro as long as it was capitalized like any other nationality. Henry M. Turner, a leader in the African method.
Check this out.
And doing the research on the book that I did on Marcus Garvey, and I decided that I would not print these things, that some things need to be left out of history. I purposely left it out.
You heard him? He said, I purposely left it out. I was doing a book about Marcus Garvey. He said, I had a revelation basically, and I thought about it, and I realized that some things should be left out of history. So I purposely left some history of Marcus Garvey out of the book that I did for Marcus Garvey. And the crowd was like, yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. That's crazy. One more time so you can make sure you heard it correctly. That's crazy. Listen.
And doing the research on the book that I did on Marcus Garvey, and I decided that I would not print these things, that some things need to be left out of history. I purposely left it out.
I purposely left it out. That's your boy. Like I said, their OG elders are blatantly lying, omitting, revising history. What I would like going to their platform after that. Their well-renowned, famous leaders are lying. No, I'm good. They got to come here. Carlos Magnus, peace. Before Umar was in Hidden Colors, he was doing lectures in hotels, but that's a fact. Bookstores, that's true. Black and what's the Black and Nobel? What's that bookstore in Philly he was doing? That's right, Carlos. He knew Garvey was. Yeah, exactly, bro. Peace, Nate. These guys, that's John Henry Clark. He's a clown. Anybody who lie, period, is a clown. And if you lie for Garvey, you're a double clown. They're covering up. They're protecting a scammer. You gotta look at it like that. They instead of like holding this scammer accountable for his sins and crimes that he did to us, FBA-DOS, you got these coons protecting him, allowing this scammer to go free. What else I got? I got a bunch, but it's late, so I don't want to unload the clip this late. Now, had I plan on I try to get here, so I tried at 7 p.m. But I had so much more research, and you see, I researched it, and then I make a video of my research. So those videos are mine. I didn't want to like upload Smiles' video. I could have been, the easy way was there. I could just upload Smiles' video or use their clips. No, I made my own videos, and people are sharing them. By the way, people are sharing. I'm saying when your video gets shared, you get the notification. So that made me feel good. It made me feel like my research and time is worth it. It's paying off. People appreciate the research. They're sharing my videos, and I like it. I'm trying to look for something else right now. Yeah, but they definitely chose Negro and color over African. Okay, now let me show you another leader who was lying for Garvey. Another clown.
And so when Garvey came to
look at this garbage.
And so when Garvey came to America, he initially told Booker he wanted to come and teach at Tuskegee and bring his ideas there. And Booker told him, no, you can't bring those ideas down there. This is the South. You got to take these ideas into the Northeast where you'll be safe. Mm-hmm. So when Garvey got here, Booker Washington had died. And I contend that Booker Washington was murdered by the establishment.
Mm-hmm. This guy said Booker Washington was murdered. Booker Washington died 100,000 years old. And this guy is saying he was murdered. Bro, listen, we got to stop that. Bro, we die. We're not robots. We're not Wakandians. We actually die.
He was invited to New York to come to a meeting, supposedly a peace meeting, to broker peace between him, Monroe Trotter.
But he said it so convincingly. You like, hey, man, I believe at the very best, he's supposed to let you know this is his opinion. You don't state your opinion as facts. You don't do that.
W.B. Du Bois and some others and some white folks. He got sick at this meeting. And they put him into
he got a conspiracy theory.
He never recovered. He sent a telegram home to his wife and his aides saying, come and get me. If I must die, I'd like to die in my beloved Tuskegee. But he died on the train when the train pulled into the station at Baltimore, Maryland, on the way back to Tuskegee. Most people don't even know where this man died.
Brother, you might be right about that. I'll give you that. Just lying for Garvey, man. Yeah, but you guys might have missed the early part, so I might play some of that tomorrow, the early part, because now I got most of the stuff I researched out the way. But man, I got a grand closing. I got some research on a clan. A grand closing. It's ridiculous, man. It's fire, but it's like it's tough because it's real. When you read the real, that thing hits different. I used to be into this Pan-Africanist conscious community, Hotep BS 15 years ago. I discovered a lot of them were fraudsters, and scammers. Why do Umar use Frederick Douglass name? Yeah, bro. Look, I ain't gonna lie. I ain't know much about Frederick Douglass until a couple of days ago. And when I probably longer, maybe like a week or two, but it doesn't matter. It's still fairly recent. But when I realized what he was about, I had the same question you just asked. Like, why the hell Umar? That's wild. Why would he put Frederick Douglass? This dude had nothing. He was 100% disagreeable with Umar Johnson thoughts. So that make you think like, yo, there's another reason. And he's a weirdo anyway. So his reasons be like, that's why he got all these triple, quadruple meanings. How was a chief? Oh my God, you were a chief in the nigga tribe? That's funny as hell. Yeah, Carlos, that's wild. These guys, man. Damn. Yeah, I'm saying they all are. I'm saying Professor James, Umar Johnson. Like I like not one ain't better than the next. And and again, they're all invited to call in, which they're not going to do because they just not. Their egos won't even let them call in. He said Omar. He meant Umar. He probably did Omar. He probably did Umar and then the auto correction. You know how they do. All right, so I'm gonna leave it right there. Again, I got more information. I'll try to go on earlier tomorrow where I have more energy. I'll be more upbeat. So I'm thinking about 11. I'm thinking about 11, 12, the latest. I plan on going live and kind of playing what I just played just now, plus the other stuff I did not play. I knew it was late. I didn't want to bore you with videos all day long. In the military, they will openly practice segregation from Black Americans and immigration. Negro would not mingle. Who stopped that? Was that A. Philip Randolph or um, Frederick Douglass? I can't remember, but one of them stopped that. One of them got an ear of a politician, and they changed that. I can't remember if it was Frederick Douglass or A. Philip Randolph. Yes, sir. Thanks, Robinson. Yeah, so tune in tomorrow if you can. If not, just take the replay. But I'm gonna go in a little more deeper. I got videos I played today, and I didn't play other stuff because I didn't want to be on here for like 90 hours. All right. So with that being said, man, if y'all available early, check me out. If not, just check the replay.